So now the tension is really building on board the start line. The start line now approaching fast, and some of these boats are too close to that start line. You can see the red buoy moving into the middle of the screen, and that is why they're now they're turning and moving up that start line. They don't want to be across early, or they'll pick up a penalty. Ian Lipinski on Credit Mutuelle. Obviously too early. He's one of the favourites to win this Class 40. And what do you do at this point, 30 seconds from the start, and you're in that position?
Well, 30 seconds to go. I mean, look to me like some of these boats are going to be over the line. And that mark may not actually be on the line, but it's certainly with 15 seconds to go.
Well, I've just spotted at the top of the screen, there's the grey ship, which is the middle of the start line.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, départ!
The Route du Rhum 2022 is underway. A few boats over the start line early, but the majority of the fleet with a good start, and they're heading off down the channel and into the Atlantic for 3,500 miles of tough racing. It's going to be a race of two halves, really. It's going to be choppy seas and strong winds early on, and then those will subside as they head south into the warmer climates and head across towards the Caribbean.
And just look at the Imoca 60s, and what an incredible shot there of these boats, and no surprise they're linked out, seem to be stretching away. We're now looking at the all teams, and the two probably race favourites, Edmund de Rothschild and Francois Gabard on SVR. Those two boats are really going to be going against each other.
Now, a lot of these sailors obviously sail as part of bigger crews or double-handed, and some of them in the Imocas and in the Class 40s in many ways are making almost their debuts in single-handed racing. How big a difference is that, you know, when you step from being with a partner or a team and suddenly you're out there on your own?
It's a big difference. It's a big difference. I mean, if you're sailing double-handed, you've always got that extra spare pair of hands, but also it gives you the opportunity to push the boat hard, knowing that you've got someone else with you. In a single-handed configuration, you do have to pace yourself better. You do need to learn to be quite disciplined in the way you take your rest, in the way that you operate the boat. It's a different type of strategy. A lot of the French sailors really spend a lot of time in this discipline. It's so popular from Figaro, from some of the smaller younger classes and so on, and so they're very used to sailing single-handed.
So again, Francois Gabard, 39 years old now, darling of French sailing fans, and well, just reputation as a winner. Wins pretty much everything, doesn't he? But he hasn't actually competed in a single-handed race since the last Route du Rhum. That's a very long time. And his boat, only 18 months old. How well, you know, does he know it? Does he still need to fine-tune it? There's a lot of question marks around him. And by contrast, in the Rhum multi-class, one of the older boats, I think from memory, dates back to 1980. I'll check that in a moment, but it's just wonderful to see. And look how much smaller it looks, how much smaller its sail is. But he will be happy on happy.
Yes, and I believe this is the boat that in the last race Loic Perron sailed, and delightful little boat, but just shows the sort of the real value of this race.
Back with Francis Joyon, 60-something years old, grinding away as if he was 20-something.
Yeah, he's
old boat though. 2006 it was launched, and it's won the last 3 Route du Rhums. In fact, that boat's got almost as much history as its skipper. It won it in 2010 as Groupama, and it was Banque Populaire with Loic Perron in 2014. Armand Leclerc on Banque Populaire, I was listening to one of his press conferences earlier this week. He said he's basically got two missions for this race. The first, he just wants to bury the memories of his capsize 4 years ago in the last race. And the other is payback time for being beaten by Charles Caudrelier on Edmond de Rothschild by just 26 minutes in the Finistère Atlantique race recently. So he's got two big missions on his mind as we watch Sedebo with Thomas Coville at the helm. Another huge name in French sailing, competing in this race for the 7th time. Right now we're with one of the most beautiful IMOCAs, I think, of the fleet, the brand new Initiative Cur of British sailor Sam Davis. And the Initiative Cur, we should explain, is a charity in which, well, if you go on Facebook and look it up, you'll see that by clicking likes and by following them on other social platforms as well, the syndicate that is behind Sam's boat will donate €1 for each click. So every race is generating a huge amount of money to help operate on children that have got heart problems in less developed parts of the world. 11 non-French sailors in the class 40 out of the 55. We've got Croatians, Italian, Swiss, South Africans, the Australian we've just seen, Americans, British, and a Belgian, all sailing to glory in the class 40.
We talked earlier about weather routing and the importance of weather routing these giant all teams. They want to minimise the amount of manoeuvres they have to do because this is debilitating for the sailor. You know, they use up huge amounts of energy reserves doing these manoeuvres, and so their router will be very mindful of that.
But here we've got Arkema, who's come to a complete stop by the looks of it with this latest manoeuvre.
Yeah, again, they've lined themselves up for the tack, but also you can see the wind is down, and so they're using the opportunity to unfurl their bigger sails, get shakeouts of reefs.
Fleet got away nicely about an hour ago. All 6 classes in the class 40, in the IMOCA, in the 2 rum classes, the monohulls and the multi-hulls, and in the Ocean 50s and all teams. Those are our 6 classes in this Route du Rhum race, and in front of us now we're seeing the mark at Cap Frehel, and the first boat there will win the Cap Frehel trophy.
Absolutely smoking along here. You can see that the sea state looks a little bit rougher. Maybe there's some currents and wind against the tide here as they come in onto the Cape.
As Charles Caudrelier on board Edmond de Rothschild, Gitana, reaches that mark at Cap Frehel to claim the trophy.
So just looking a little bit further back to some of the other classes, and it won't be too long, I think, before we start to see the lead group looking to manoeuvre and tack away back into shore. We're looking at Charlie Dallin on a Pivia, who is one of the boats in the mix, in the sort of middle group of boats, and
incredibly a rookie in this race.
And a rookie in this race.
His very first Route du Rhum.
Yeah, really hard to believe, but he will. I almost for certain want to finish this particular program he's on with a win in this race.
So here we go, this race to Cap Frehel between Banque Populaire and Sedebo. It's Armel Leclerc against Thomas Coville, and they're coming in together, but certainly from this angle it looks like Armel Leclerc is going to take second to the line. The flag of Brittany and the black and white stripes being flown by the locals. Fiercely independent, the people of St Malo. I was reading that, I think it was a few hundred years ago, they even declared independence, not just from France, but from Brittany. St Malo, for centuries, home to legendary mariners, pirates, explorers, and these days, modern professional sailors who've started campaigns not just across the Atlantic from here, but to sail right around the world. So here we've got Quentin Vlaming on our Kama. These are the 3 Ocean 50s leading to Cap Frehel. Primonial coming in now. Charles Dallin making his last trip on Apevia, because after this it's all change and a new boat for him. We've talked about Sam Davis and how significant that moment is for her to start with a new boat. How significant is it to finish with your old boats and transfer to another one? How sort of nostalgic do you get?
Well, I think for these teams now, they're taking their design ethos and rolling it into campaign after campaign after campaign. They've built a successful team around them. And so very little actually changes, even though they're changing boat form. And I suspect they'll maintain the same design ethos. It's certainly been a formula that's been very successful for Charlie Dallin.
Now, when they reach Guadeloupe, it's quite a psychologically difficult moment, isn't it? Because you've come all that way, you're tired, you're exhausted, and you see the island in front of you. But that's not the end of it, because they've got to go around it. They've got to do a loop and come around the top of it and up to the finish line at the south of the island. How difficult is it to stay focused for what could turn out to be, I don't know, 20 hours, 24 hours to get around Guadeloupe?
It sits there at the island come in with the wind, but obviously around the back of the island the wind is sheltered, and so you have a choice whether you stay a little bit further offshore and make a bigger rounding, but if you're neck and neck with another boat, you may not want them to sneak round inside of you, and so it's very stressful.
And this is how they'll do it: out of the channel, probably by tomorrow morning. And then it's a choice of how they cross the Atlantic. Do they stick closer to the West Africa route, or do they come direct? 3,500 miles and then that lap into Guadeloupe to the finish. In 7 days' time for, we estimate for the all teams, it could be up to 2 weeks for the slower boats. And this is what awaits them: the white sandy beaches of the Caribbean island of Guadeloupe, the home of Caribbean rum, which is where the race gets its name from. A very different race in 2 parts: wet and windy and very moist in the first part, and warm and sunny and probably lighter winds we expect in the second part as they head down and across the Atlantic to Guadeloupe. So a fantastic destination awaits them. Which part of this race are you most looking forward to?
I'm really looking forward to seeing how the strategy plays out in those first few days between the sort of north and south. And once they've got through the complexities of these weather systems, really seeing how these IMOCAs, these different designed IMOCAs, go against each other.
Well, we'll see how they go. This has to be one of the favourites in the IMOCA class. Not one of the newest boats, but one of the most tried and tested boats in the hands of one of the most experienced and currently successful skippers in the fleet, Charles Dallin. Well, it was a 3-day wait, but I think you'll agree, Conrad, it was worth waiting for, wasn't it? It's been stunning images off that start line. The 12th edition of the Route du Rhum is definitely away in style. We will update you regularly on the website. The tracker is there, and we'll also give you an update on Sam Goodchild, who has retired injured. We missed the huge crowds, because of the postponement, but those who could get away from work today turned up in their thousands. They gave us a great show there at Cap Frehel. Ahead of the fleet await storms and huge swells in the early stages, lighter, trickier conditions as they head south. It's going to be a fascinating watch over the next 7 to 14 days or so. We wish them all safe passage, and as the French say, bon vent. Conrad, Humphreys, thanks very much for joining me. It's been fascinating listening to your Route du Rhum stories. And so, from Conrad and from me, Alec Wilkinson, in St Malo, it's goodbye.